Hi, thanks for tuning in to Turn to the Stars. My name is Andrea Clem, and I'm an astrological counselor and a core shamanic practitioner from the local Manchester area. And we have a really special show planned for you today. My guest today is Danielle Dionne, who is a medium, an animal communicator, and a psychic. Welcome, Danielle.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we have been able to connect because I talked with Danielle a while ago, and we thought we would come together and she would come on the show and be a guest, and finally we're getting it. We're getting here.
Yeah, so I'm excited. This is great. So thank you for having me.
I'm really glad to have you. And just share a little bit with you about Danielle. She is from Chester, New Hampshire, and has been a consistent participant at the Turn to the Stars Psychic Holistic Fairs that we facilitate bi-monthly at the Yard in Manchester. And in fact, we just had one this past Saturday, and it was a really great event. So she, as I said before, I've been trying to catch her. She's so busy. Catch her and set a date. So here we are finally. And what I think is so neat about when we talk with people is their personal story. How did you begin to do this work, and what's behind that? How did that all develop?
Sure. Well, my first connections with spirit started when I was really young. It's kind of a sad situation. My best friend passed away when I was 6 years old, and the same year my grandmama passed away, and I had another childhood friend who was 5 pass away. So a lot of death in a very short amount of time, and my parents did, as best they could, kind of explaining what death was, and I think I kind of grasped it as much as you can at 6. But what was interesting is that I started to see my friend very physically in some situations, and then I would also receive messages from him. I would feel his presence, and I would start to get precognitive messages about things before they happened from this friend of mine. So when you're 6 years old, it's fine to have imaginary friends, and so I would tell my parents, and my friend is here, and that was fine and tolerated. But as I got older, that became something that we talked less and less about, and I always say my parents were, supportive. But, had me tested, I wasn't crazy. But it became something that I just didn't share a whole lot of, but still experienced going through my teens and then the rest up till current. And what was also interesting, so that was really positive for me on the mediumship side and connecting with spirit, because I wasn't afraid and I liked these visits from my friend. But I didn't know until I moved out when I was 18 that the house that I lived in, a murder took place in prior to my parents moving in. And my sister and I experienced a lot of interesting energy and weird experiences in the house, and that left me very fearful and kind of not really understanding what I was experiencing in some regards. So I remember having covers on even in the summer, because I knew something was there even though I couldn't see it, I could feel it. So kind of uncomfortable, and didn't really understand that till later on in my development. So that's kind of how I got my first connections with spirit. And when I was, I ended up taking Reiki about 10 years ago, and really to work with animals, which I'm sure I'll talk more about. But I had, at some point I decided to pursue Reiki Master, and I studied with my teacher for over a year, and as part of the apprenticeship, she sent me to a spiritualist church, which, if you haven't heard of it, it's basically similar to church structure. There's sermons. They do hands-on healing there, which is the reason she sent me, just to kind of experience what people were doing. But they also believe in the continuation of life after death. And it was very laid back, very relaxed, normal people talking to dead people. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is like what I've been looking for forever. I didn't really know we had anything locally. And so started development work in Circle there. And then pretty much started my own development circles, joined every possible group, every class I could, and really just kind of immersed myself in it. And it was nice to find community. So
yeah, it is nice to find a community when people of like minds.
Yes.
And how many years have you been offering the readings?
I started, so I did development group for a number of years, really with no thought about doing this professionally. In fact, that was really intimidating for me. I liked connecting with spirit. I wanted to kind of, make connections for people that I knew, but thought it would be, scary and weird to go to a fair or, see clients and do that. And I was really fortunate to have a great mentor and friend, Lauren Rainbow, who basically said, no, you really got to go and you're coming to this fair. And so after much protest, I did go to my first fair and started doing fairs in 2010, kind of getting my feet wet. And what I found was that it was awesome because connecting with spirit, connecting with deceased loved ones, bringing through evidential pieces of information, it always surprises me what comes out of my mouth and how spirit works, and what they bring for people when you're making a connection. And then also honoring pieces of their essence. So not just the factual things. I always tell people, like, if I die, I hope they're not like, oh, she was really busy, she had a farm, she loved animals, she's pretty crazy. I want there to be more to that story. She loved animals, she loved people. They're, memories, shared things like that. And then obviously the messages that come through. So starting to do fairs, I kind of opened up to the idea maybe I would do more of this. And in 2011, at the beginning of the year, I started my business, Crossroads Farm, and have been seeing clients, teaching classes, and working in different capacities since then.
Wow. Do where I know that you mentioned that you teach mediumship and psychic development. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Classes that are upcoming and such.
So when I started my development work, most of the options for me were spirit circles, traditional circles, where you kind of sit and you download information, and you give it, usually in a group setting, you deliver what you get for messages. And I love that. That was a great start for me. But at some point, it became, I wanted more. I wanted more instruction. I wanted more guidance. So I became a connoisseur, I guess, of mediumship and spiritual development education. I was wicked fortunate to study with James Van Praagh for an advanced mediumship class, John Holland. In 2011, I got to go to England to Arthur Findlay College in Stansted and study with Jose Gossick of the Dutch Academy of Mediumship, which I had read about when I was a kid. Arthur Findlay was just a cool realization. So got to see a lot of different structures for teaching. And what really worked for me and what kind of accelerated and moved me, including local teachers too, like Lauren Rainbow and Carolyn. So when I kind of started to see clients and do more of this, I thought, I've been sitting in development groups for a long time and I know what I think works well and what I think can help people. So why don't I start working in that capacity? So initially I started holding them out of my house even before I opened my business. And then more formally, now I have a development group that I have a mediumship development group and a psychic development group that I host once a month mediumship, once a month psychic development at Living Light in Bedford, New Hampshire. So that was kind of the first piece of it for me. But then since I had, a lot of information and kind of understood spirit better and how spirit worked with me, I decided to start teaching it and do some coaching and working with people to help them understand their connection with spirit and take their development to the next level.
It's always amazing in teaching that when you see someone else developing. I know teaching astrology and teaching shamanism that there's always a learning curve for us as well, in that process, and that's a really great part of it.
Yes.
Yeah. And so are there any other avenues that of spirit communication that you're involved in?
Yes. So I do a lot. I have my hands in a lot of different things. Mediumship and animals being my core, my passion. So I mentioned earlier that growing up, we grew up in a house where there was some paranormal activity. And so not thinking this was something I'd ever want to explore, as I really don't like scary movies. I'm kind of a chicken. I stumbled into a situation with a paranormal group, just kind of wanting to check out an event that was local for me. And then kind of an interesting connection I went on an investigation with them and started working with them. So I do work as a medium in a paranormal group, Northeast Paranomal Associates, based out of the Seacoast, but we're pretty much all over New Hampshire and Mass. And basically, there's another side of mediumship. So instead of connecting in with deceased loved ones who've crossed over and bringing through, messages and, validation that life does go on after death, helping cross souls over. So that's something that I got heavily involved in probably in 2010. It's taken me on really cool opportunities and working with individuals that think they're experiencing paranormal activity in their home, working with them, getting people comfortable with the idea of soul. If you do have a, energy or a ghost or something in your home, trying to get people in the mindset that it's a good idea to move that energy on and help assist them and cross them over and, have their loved ones come and collect them and escort them to the light. So heavily involved in that. It's actually a nonprofit group that I work into. So we do a lot of charity events. So fall, we're really busy. We do lots of community fundraisers. In fact, next week we're doing a cool event. We do all kinds of weird things. We'll be at the Fisher Cats game, so come out and see us if you want to talk to paranormal investigators and connect with me. But so there's that side of things that I work in. So that's also connecting with deceased loved ones. But heavily involved in Reiki. I still teach Reiki. So before I kind of got into all this development, I did become a Reiki master. I do teach Reiki classes. Taught that before everything else. And
before we move on, just for the people watching the show, what are the dates that your psychic development and your mediumship development? Can anybody join that?
Yes, it's an open group. It meets from 6:30 to 9 at Living Light in Bedford, New Hampshire. The first Monday of the month is our mediumship development group, and that's open to people of all different levels. So if you're just starting out and you kind of want to see what this is about, I would encourage reading up and taking development classes. But this is a good practice session, an opportunity to kind of throw out things you're experiencing and kind of troubleshoot. And then the third Monday of the month, we have a psychic development group. So this has been pretty fun. So we do a range of psychic development activities. We look at some old parapsychology experiments we try to replicate. So
you know what?
Cool.
You know what I think is so great about Danielle? We talked about this yesterday on the phone. Is that you see these shows on TV, paranormal investigation, and they go in and I always get upset because I see them stir up the energy and then leave it that way. And years back I started to do spirit crossovers just because it happened. It just happened, and so I began doing that. And not mediumship so much, but spirit crossovers. And so I just thought it's so great that you're helping the spirits that are in need or stuck, or sometimes I know they need to stay there, but also I know that there's ones that are looking for help and a communication and a friendly hand or a friendly what do you call it? Talking to them and helping them to understand where they're at, where it would be best for them to be, and seeing what that's all about is great. So I think that's great. It was so funny. Yesterday, I'm in physical therapy, and I was telling Danielle this as I was in physical therapy yesterday. This fellow from Hudson came in and was sitting next to me getting his physical therapy, and I'm talking with my physical therapist about having Danielle on the show today, and that I was so excited because it's been a while that I've been trying to get her on the show. And so this man sat down and he heard me talking to Dana, and he said, well, I do a show in Hudson. And he said, I had a paranormal group on just recently. And I come to find out it's the paranormal group that Daniel's involved with. So I thought that was a really interesting series of events.
Yes, absolutely. And it's great that I think there's so much exposure to paranormal. I think a lot of it has to do with the TV shows, and we can argue if intent and goodness about them or whatever. But I think that it is kind of nice to inform people about if you're experiencing things that maybe you're not crazy, maybe there is something going on, and then there are people local doing this stuff. There's a lot of interest in it, and I love the work that we do. I did not think in a million years I would be on a paranormal team because I thought that was scary and weird, and I have a very analytic background as well, so I'm always looking for ways to back up what I'm getting evidentially. So it's nice to have the tools and gadgets when we go out on group to kind of see validation to kind of what I'm getting, and that's pretty awesome.
So how do people contact you, Danielle?
Yes, so a couple different ways. So on the paranormal topic, if you are interested or you're experiencing energy, you're maybe thinking, you want to call in some investigations, or you want to do a fundraiser or something, Northeast Paranomal Associates is the name of the group. It's www.nepa NipaNH.com, so NipaNewHampshire.com for paranormal side of things. And for me, if you want to come, look, if you're looking for development, if you want to come for a reading, or kind of check out some of the stuff that I'm doing, www.DanielleDionne.com. I think it's on the screen, so I'm not going to spell it out.
Yeah.
But the best way is email or call me. My information's there. And I'd love to connect.
And she'll be on Turn to the Stars website on our links page as part of our network.
Yes.
And you'll be able to see the show there as well. So, one of my favorite parts about what you do is the animal communication, because, for people that are animal lovers, that's important because they become like our children. And can you tell us about that part of your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So people are probably going to get the impression that I was like a lonely, weird child. But I really wasn't, mostly. So my friends all died, and then I love my cat. I had this cat growing up, and it sounds silly, but I very much believe we have soul contracts with people we come in contact with, but very much with our animals. And they're there for, for whatever lesson we have to learn from each other. And I had this great cat that really understood me. It was awesome. She came to me when I was just a few years old. She came in my window. I think she chose me. And I just had this really deep connection with her. She just really got me more than other people did. And, if I was upset, she would come, she would sit with me. I just felt like I was always communicating with her since I was little. And didn't know it was like a formal thing. I didn't know, although I did watch Dr. Dolittle, the old one. That was my favorite movie growing up. I watched it over and over again. Didn't really know people did this. And actually one of the first books that I got that really impacted me, and if anybody's into, shamanism or animal communication, you might have heard of it. It's Animal Speak by Ted Andrews.
Yeah,
that book was amazing. I was a little, I read a lot. I got, whatever I could from, reading material about paranormal, psychic.
Right.
And then that book was awesome to find because it taught me meditation. Basically, I would read the meditations out of it to meet your spirit guides, to really just to do meditation. I would read them and record it into my little play school recording tape thing and play it back and do guided meditation. And so that's how I started working with guides, animal guides growing up, but then just felt this deep connection to my cat. And always felt, I worked on farms. I worked at Petco for a long time. And that actually kind of came back to play when I was working at Petco. I fostered a lot of animals. My mom, my family, they're all big animal lovers. So we always had animals coming in and out trying to help and assist, which is really fortunate for me. When I was at Petco, there was a fundraiser and there was a pet psychic. And it was pretty amazing. Like, I kind of was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I should go talk to her.
Yeah.
And, she told me about an animal situation that I was dealing with in details. I didn't give her any information. And said, oh, he really likes the toy that you just put in his cage before you left. And before I went to work that day, I had given him a new toy. So I said, oh my gosh. And she said to me, for somebody doing all this work with animals and kind of that's drawn to healing, you should really learn Reiki so you can help with the animals. And I hadn't really heard of Reiki or like processed what that was. And so I did take it, really with the emphasis on animals, and loved it, and kind of just incorporated it into my life, and really work with animals particularly. And again, just in, day to day, wasn't doing it professionally or anything. And when I got out of college, I decided I wanted to take this a step further and become a Reiki master, hence the spiritualist development, kind of started the whole ball rolling about, where I am today. So it's been a cool ride. But did find that people do animal communication and got my hands on, different workshops. Bruce Busher was luckily coming to that area when I kind of found out about this. I took classes with Danielle McKinnon, and shamanic side of things, journeying to connect in with animals and animal spirits. And really, the more I worked with it, I kind of developed a process for what I use. So it's a little bit different than formal techniques, but found it really worked for me. And so now I do that for people. So really energy assessments, kind of, if people have, health questions, behavior issues with an animal, pet dynamics with people in the house, soul contracts. Those are kind of things that we can kind of tap in on and see if there's any, enhancement or any messages there for people.
So the person doesn't necessarily need to bring the animal to you.
No, as cool as it would be to have the animal sit there and kind of look at me and bark and look like we were talking back and forth, it doesn't work like that. Same with deceased loved ones. It's not like on Ghost Whisper. They're not telling me, they're all burned and telling me, help me find this person.
Right.
It's spiritual charades. Animals are very physical. So if there's any ailment on body, they'll actually take you there physically. People do that too, but animals are really good at it.
Yeah.
So tapping in on health things is something that you're able to kind of do through this technique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's neat. As we astrologically, as we sit here talking, this Thursday at about 9:50 at night, we have a solar eclipse coming.
Yes.
And it is a major marker of big change coming for the next 6 months, and people looking at the value. It's a huge thing of people considering the value of the things that they want to begin to build on in their lives. And so I think it's great that you're here talking and sharing this information for people, because I know there's a lot of people out there that have these experiences, and they think, if I tell somebody, they're going to think I'm crazy. But the fact is that we're all made up of a spirit, a soul, a mind, and a body, and it's perfectly natural to have visions. It's perfectly natural to see spirit. We're a spirit ourselves. And so the reason I brought up the eclipse is that there's different things that different people value. I value my little dog Bunny. She's one of my my best friends. I've always had a best friend dog, and but you value your friends. But there's I think it's just really important for us to all take a good look at what we value and the things that are important to us, and maybe even the patterns that we can step into to bring change into our lives, and be grateful for those things that we have.
Absolutely.
And so there was a story that Danielle told me yesterday, and I can't get that story out of my head. She about the little possum.
Yeah. Gosh. So I don't recommend this. So that's my preface. Spirit puts you in the right place at the right time, and I've been fortunate to have really supported people along the way. But this is a cute story about how my mom, I think, came to really accept Reiki and that you can work with energy. Animals are so awesome because there's no preconceived notions about, oh my gosh, this is crazy. This isn't going to work. It is going to work. They just feel, and they're very raw, and they're very in the moment. And so I was driving home from my parents' house in Manchester, actually, and there was a baby possum, a tiny little thing, kitten-sized, in the middle of the road, and it had been hit by a car. And so I was like, oh gosh. And I get out, and I'm kind of assessing the situation, and it's not looking good. And so I said, all right. So crazy me says, I'll just take it to my parents' house, and I'll give it some Reiki, and then it'll die, and it'll be fine. So I scoop it up in a sweatshirt. I call my mom. I say, Mom, I'm coming over. I'm really sorry. I have this, dying possum, but don't worry, it's going to be okay because I'm going to give it Reiki. It'll transition. One of the big things with that I learned through Reiki and the experiences that I had fostering and taking in abandoned animals is that Reiki is not, it helps assist in transition. Same with people, with hospice, with anything. Really good for that. So I felt comfortable I was going to do that. Don't pick up possums off the side of the road. I don't think it's legal. Don't do that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I bring it home, and my mom's like, what are you doing? This is crazy. And it's sniveling. It's very upset because it has been hit by a car. And I start giving it Reiki, and it just, after a moment, I put my hands on it. It just and calms and sits in my hands and relaxes and just receives Reiki. And my mom is like, she's like, I can't believe that. I really didn't know there wouldn't be something to it, but there's no way this animal was so upset and just immediately calmed down. The quick, nice end of the story is that baby possum did not pass away and actually did get better. We worked with some really cool vets, some wildlife rehabbers. I became a member of the National Possum Society. So, there's a lot of good venues. If there is wildlife that is hurt, make sure you call, appropriate people. But he did go on to live, which is cool. Yeah.
So did he end up going to a wildlife habitat?
Yep. And,
good.
Yes. So there's really great people in Bedford, New Hampshire. There's a whole bunch of people that really kind of devote their lives to this. So
Yeah.
there's a listing online if you talk to your state that you can get information about. So I would encourage that. Don't pick it up.
Yeah, I know possums, you want to always have respect for wild
Yes.
animals. So, that's really important.
Yes. Yes.
And but I'm really glad that you took the time to come here because I think that it does reassure people that what they see or what they feel is important, and that I know from years ago I would question things that I dreamt of, or question things that I'd seen. As a child, I don't remember being open like you. It was older, when I was 36, that I began to find out what was beyond. There's much more to this, and I began studying astrology. So I think it's great that you can confirm this for people who are watching the show, and know that really they're just fine.
Yes. Yes.
So Danielle's website is, as you can see on the screen, is www.danielledionne.com. And is there any advice that you would offer up to people that that might help them on their path, on their journey, before we end the show?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that if you have interest in this, or you think you're having experiences, you probably are. And you can develop it. So much like, I'm a firm believer in this. Some people beg to differ, but I've seen it and I really feel this is true. Just like playing piano, some people pick it up really quickly. Some it takes more practice. It's like a muscle. I find that psychic, the mediumship, the more you kind of tap into this, the more you kind of devote time to, exercise those muscles, the more information you get, the more you understand your connection to spirit, and the more, you make that divine connection, and you can actually get better at this.
Right.
So there's a lot of great resources in the area. I would just encourage you to kind of go out there and look. It's actually a really good community too. I had no idea that, this was so big in the area, 5-10 years ago, and there's just so much out there. So if you're feeling called to it, there's probably somebody else in the area that is called to it as well. And so make those connections, and that I think it's important, and I do think people are waking up to it. So. It is true. My friend who used to live up here in New Hampshire moved to Connecticut, and she said that New Hampshire, where we live, that there is a great community here of holistic people. So we're lucky, we are really
very lucky. So, but everyone, thanks for watching Turn to the Stars, and thank you, Danielle, for coming on.
Oh, thank you.
And talking to our audience, and I really appreciate it. And but everyone, thank you for watching Turn to the Stars, and I hope you all get to look at that solar eclipse. Check out YouTube. It's going to be on May 9th, and probably you'll be able to see it on the 10th on YouTube, because this is a really phenomenal event, and it does precede or paint a theme of the next 6 months, the changes that you'll be experiencing. So anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you soon. Take care.